So today on the Coach Mark Gottfried Show, we've got an amazing guest. His name is Meb Keflezighi, and Meb is the oldest person to ever win the Boston Marathon, the New York Marathon. He's probably one of the greatest marathon runners we've ever seen in this generation. And he's got an amazing story. His family fled from a small country in Africa called Eritrea, if I have that right. But we're going to dive into his story and some of the things that he had to overcome as he came to the United States. Went to UCLA, had a great experience, but he went through some great ups and downs throughout his career and participated in the Boston Marathon 1 year after the bombings in Boston. So we're going to have a phenomenal episode today with one of the greatest marathon runners in the history of our generation. All right, welcome back. This is the Coach Mark Gottfried Show, and man, I'm excited today because I've got somebody that I've gotten to know over the years. I would argue that he is maybe one of the greatest, if not the greatest, marathon runner in the history of our generation, but certainly one of the best ever, a winner of the Boston Marathon, New York City Marathon, a four-time Olympian, a phenomenal marathon runner, but a guy that's just got a great story. So today I've got Meb Keflezighi, and Meb, I am fired up to have you on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me, Coach. It's great to be with you again.
So just to give everybody a little bit of a background, we both have a mutual friend that we've known for years, and I was introduced to you a long time ago. And our friend David Kahn from Birmingham, Alabama, introduced us. But, you know, you've spoken to my teams at NC State, which was a phenomenal opportunity for my guys to listen to your story. But we go back a little bit, and I am a big fan. So let's start off with, Meb, a little bit about, tell us a little bit about your story of where you grew up and how you ended up coming to the United States, because I think it's very fascinating.
Well, thanks, Coach, and thanks, David Kahn, for connecting us. NC State was fun to be able to talk to those basketball players, and it was a pinch me moment for me as well. But my humble beginning started in Eritrea, which is in northeast of Africa, top part of Ethiopia. On the north of it is Sudan, and there was a war that was going on for independence that lasted for 31 years, and my dad was one of the soldiers, and he was wanted by the Ethiopian soldiers, so he's going to get prison or killed. So my mom had the courage to tell him maybe he should escape the war and see what happens, but my dad didn't want to do that because he had 5 kids, 1 on the way, and a wife to leave behind, but his father-in-law gave him the blessing to kind of escape, and he just imagine now over 225 miles, wherever you live, go for a walk on the jungle, in the wilderness. There's no path that says you're going to go this side or hotels to book in. So he would sleep actually on the trees, on top in the trees where he crossed his leg on a branch so he can have his legs to stable, because if he's on the ground, he'll be eaten by hyenas or lions or scorpions or get bit by a snake and things like that. So it was a tough one, but the biggest journey of most of all was leaving behind a wife and 6 kids. But they promised each other, if it's a boy or a girl, call her Amina. If it's a girl, if it's a boy, call her Bim. That means we trust. If I make it a safe land, I will look after you. And fortunately for us, he made it a safe land to Sudan, and he worked there, odd jobs for about a year and a half. And then after a year and a half, I have half-sister Ruth, her mom, sponsored him to come to Italy. And he went to Italy, lived there for another 3.5 years. So I did not see my father from the age of 5 till 10. And he can, and also in Italy, he was a janitor, landscaper, but he got a good acquaintance with his boss, Dr. Brindisi. And they became good friends over time. And Dr. Brindisi asked my dad, why you work so hard? And my dad said, I work hard because I got to save my wife and 6 kids. And they became friends again over the years. My dad asked him, can you do me a favor? He's like, what do you need, Rusum? And my dad's name. And he says, I need you to loan me money to save my wife and kids, because they're getting older, especially the boys. They're old enough to hold a gun. The soldiers going to come raid the city, the village, and take them over. So if you're old enough to hold a gun, they're going to be gone. So I have 2 older brothers, and then I'm next. And he said, over that time, my mom had to walk over literally like 15 kilometers from the village to the capital city to receive a phone call. And the only way of transportation there was a wagon, and the wagon's not going to take off unless it's full with people with 25 cents. So she just started walking so she can receive a call from my dad. And as the story goes on, and Dr. Brindich just told my dad to come back, and about Friday was the conversation happened, come back on Wednesday. When my dad returned on Wednesday, Dr. Brindich gave him 10 million lire cash, but he said, this is not a loan, this is a gift. And that's how my family and I got saved. And first time seeing my dad flying for the first time from Ethiopia to Athens, and I was by the window. I'm like, I'm gonna fall off. I was looking at the window. I'm like, how am I stay here? So it was a really tough time, but I got off the plane. I ran to my dad, gave him a hug, and he goes, Meb Howie, which is my youngest brother, Howie, by 4 years. He confused us. I said, no, it's Meb. And then he just went to tears because he was expecting me to be taller and muscular. But my mom said, don't hold on your tears. Just make sure all 6 of them are her, because for her it was super hard to be both parents back in Eritrea.
Meb, when you think about that time and you look back on it right now, and now, you're a little bit older, and just like me, those years just keep creeping up on us. But when you look back, Meb, like a lesson, I mean, there's so many lessons. I mean, it's, we're so gifted sometimes here in the States, the way we grow up and the things we have. But for you, talked about a couple lessons from that you just hold on to, that just resonate with you more than the others.
Coach Gottfried, for me, was never take things for granted, because coming from war, where I had to, a landmine blew kids away when he was, in the village, and then I have to literally go pick up with stick to get him to get proper burial. So don't take things for granted. And the other thing is, appreciate people who helped you over the years, and be there, to be able to just keep going forward. Persistence. You're not going to win every race. You're not going to get every job that you think you're capable of, but don't give up hope. So those are the lessons that I learned over the years. So as a student athlete at UCLA, or as a student athlete, or just a professional athlete, I never take things for granted. I'm always grateful and delighted to have them, but at the same time, have I maxed out those talents? And nobody's perfect, but you try to do as good human being, as good job as you can.
Meb, for you, and going through all that you did as a young person, and obviously your family being separated and then coming back together and moving to a different country, you later in life became, maybe, I always tell people, maybe the greatest marathon runner ever, but certainly you're up in there. But for you, Meb, when did running, the way that you run, when did that become a part of your life?
So we came to the United States on October 21st, which was yesterday, October 21st, 1987, 38 years ago. We came to the United States without speaking English. But my dad woke us up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning before going to 7:30 o'clock class to learn English through the dictionary, one word at a time. And my oldest brother, who was in 9th grade at the time in San Diego, California, got the most outstanding student at Roosevelt Junior High next to the San Diego Zoo. And they gave us he received this big of a trophy, it's very, very small, palm of your hand. And they put that trophy at the top of the TV and said, see, in the United States, hard work does pay off. So a year later, 1988, in fact, it was an Olympic year, I started my 7th grade class, which was a junior high. And the PE teacher, Duke Lord, said, if you run hard, you're going to get A or B. If you mess around or goof around, you're going to get DRF. It wasn't around the track 4 times. It was more around the baseball field, go up the ramp, and then go around the softball field, and then finish in the middle of the campus. And to his expectation and surprise, I ran a 5 minutes and 20 seconds. And that's when my God-given talent was discovered. And he said, you're going to go to the Olympics. But I had no idea what the word Olympic meant, because I grew up without electricity and no television. So I just said T-shirt or an A, symbol, an A. And I went and asked my dad that evening and said, what's the Olympics? And he says, what happened? He's like, the PE teacher said this. And he says, well, did your brothers didn't even run that fast? And he says, hey, it's what happened. And he explained to me how the world gets in peace and harmony every 4 years to get together for a friendly competition. And that's when I knew about the Olympics. And the rest is history. It was in 7th grade, where I was shy and timid kid, but through sports, that self-esteem went up, and I worked harder in school. And then ended up getting to UCLA and ran 4 NCAA titles for them. And then eventually the marathon, people always thought I would be a beautiful marathon, even when I was in high school. And I asked them how far that was. And they said 26.2 miles. I said, no, I'm a miler. I don't want to do that event. And it was in 2002, after the Olympics in Sydney, Australia, what a great honor it was to become a U.S. citizen and to be able to represent the red, white, and blue in Sydney, Australia, and quite a pinch me moment to be able to just say, I am actually going to the Olympic. I'm actually representing the United States, the country that gave me so much opportunities, and now I get to wear the uniform. It was an unbelievable moment, and it was prior to 9/11, so you can wear USA everywhere and anywhere, and you were, treated like royalty as well. So it was a magical moment. Still is my favorite Olympic experience in Sydney, Australia. And then my dad was excited. You're gonna win for the adopted country. You're gonna win the gold medal. I'm like, Dad, I was a 10K runner, which is 6.2 miles, and I said, Dad, I can't beat him today. He's like, don't think that way. You got to think positive. I said, Dad, they have run 26 minutes and 30 seconds for 10K, which is 6.2 miles. I have run 20. I have not even broken 28 minutes. So the discrepancy is a minute and a half. And I said, I hope I didn't get lapped. That's what I'm thinking. He's thinking I'm winning a gold. But, before I left the stadium, I finished 12th, excited, and I wanted to win a medal for our country. And when I made that goal, it was more in the 10K than the marathon. But in 2002, which was not an Olympic year or World Championship year, was a kind of like, shoulder season per se. I wanted to try the marathon. I did it in 2002 in New York City Marathon. I went for the win. I was excited. I had but it was 16, 17 miles. I felt great. I threw my water in my head, and I have the lightest shoes ever. But the cold water got me frozen and it just shut my engine off. And instead of doing nice cadence, I started stomping the ground. And then eventually I finished the race in a good time. I was 2 hours and 12 minutes and 35 seconds. But to go to the Olympics, you need to run sub 2:12. So I missed it by 35 seconds. I'm like, never again. I don't want to. This is my first and last marathon. I don't want any more marathon. And I can't run another marathon just to shave off 35 seconds. So that's how my marathon started, but I guess I lied a little bit because I did go back for another 25 marathons.
Meb, let me ask you this one, because as I listened to you and we've talked a little bit, even when you talked to my teams in the past, I hear this great appreciation for your father and your mother, your parents. Mm-hmm. But and parenting is hard. Like, we all that have children know that we don't always get it right. We make a lot of mistakes as parents. But when I listen to you, I just kind of love the way, or I'm gonna let you describe like some lessons that you learned from your mother and your father, and you've referred to your father a number of times too. But just some of the lessons and some things that stand out for you that your father did. It seems like he was an amazing encourager, but I'd like to hear that from you.
Both my parents are unbelievable people. They barely have any formal education. My dad had only 7th grade education. My mom never went to school, but those are some of the wisest people I ever met. And the lessons they teach us is to follow what your elders do. So if you follow, we didn't have babysitters or tutors or whatnot, but what they tell us, if your brother or sister is doing the right thing, keep doing that. Follow their footsteps. So good leaders lead very well. So for me, I think the lessons are be patient. You're not going to get it overnight, but attendance and consistency is very important. No matter how sick we were, because they didn't have the education, you got to go to school. It doesn't matter if you have headache or if you got cold or anything like that. So persistence and consistency is important, but also others is respect others the way you want to be respected is important, And my dad always says, tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. So if you surround yourself with like-minded people, you will achieve that. So I think those are the lessons that we learn over the years. And, as brothers and sisters, I'm one of the 11 brothers and sisters. All of us has followed each other to great success. It didn't happen overnight, but it is all getting the best out of yourself, which one of the lessons I learned from my parents, or also from my mentor, the Van Camp, is run to win. It doesn't mean getting first place, but getting the best out of yourself and anything and everything that you do.
Meb, I have to imagine, and you and I share, a couple of things, but one is that probably our love for UCLA. I was there 7 years as a basketball coach. You were there, but did you realize at the time, Meb, and I say this to people all the time, it's one of the great institutions, great universities in the country. I loved the diversity. I loved what the UCLA degree did for people. I look at our former players, and sometimes I marvel at just how wonderful they are as human beings. A lot of that's their parents, but I think the school also just does a great job. But for you, here you are. Now you've got this opportunity to be at UCLA. It's one of the great schools in the country, and you get to compete as an athlete. Talk about how that felt for you as you were there at UCLA.
Going to UCLA was one of the best decisions. I was fortunate enough to get recruited by many schools because of my athletic, and also I was a good student. My SAT might not have reflected that, but nobody's going to outwork me at that. So my coach, Bob Larson, who I met there, he says, I gave the scholarship to the Keflezighi family, not just Meb, because he saw where we came, what we were able to do, and two of my brothers were in the UC system. So, and then Howie, my brother, and my sister, also Bahagi, who's a doctor from UCLA, and Howie, law degree from UCLA. So that recruit paid off for Coach Larson and then UCLA because, once one started, we followed each other. And going to UCLA means so much, as he pointed out. Diversity was important to me. I could have gone to other schools, but I think the diversity that UCLA brought was humongous. And that at the time, UCLA was also the best academics and athletic combination, which I was looking forward to. And for me, Coach Gottfried, I never gave running a priority until I graduated from UCLA because that diploma meant so much for me. And I have to skip practice to go to classes. As you know, English is not my first language, so I have to work extra hard, and then proudly display that diploma from UCLA because it took a lot of hard work to get that. And it means so much to be able to, UCLA is world and national and international renowned school, both academically and athletically. I feel so proud to have attended and met some great people there as well.
UCLA, Meb, for me, I always tell people too is, I went to Alabama and, football was big and basketball was big, but, we had athletes at Alabama that really nobody ever heard of in other sports, in track and field. And I think Calvin Smith was a 100-yard dash world record holder, but a lot of times they didn't get the recognition. At UCLA, the one thing I did love is it didn't matter. We had the best athletes in every sport. We had the best men's gymnastic guys in the Olympics in the history, maybe, in Mitch Gaylord and Peter Vidmar. And then you have Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Florence Griffith. And then in football and baseball, Jackie Robinson. I mean, it was an amazing. But for you, as the athlete, too, I love the fact that you're celebrated and should be celebrated. And I think UCLA has always done a great job with that.
And they always have. And then, like you said, the UCLA is above and beyond in all sports, especially as a basketball coach, Coach John Wooden. What a great honor to be able to meet him, go to his house and be able to visit and then be able to win, 95 when the NCAA was won by the Bruins. It was so much fun. Westwood went crazy. And that's the beauty of sport. But also, people know that. I know some people that could not get into UCLA, even though they were very good, great athletics. UCLA always is respectable to the academics that you're going to achieve because they want you to make sure you graduated and do a good job beyond just athletic on the course. So to be at UCLA it really is an amazing time. And now I have I have 3 daughters. 2 of them are definitely interested in going to there, and to go back and reminisce a little bit is pretty fascinating and be able to just cherish the moment. So, those Bruins, I think all, like you said, those names, but even it goes much more deeper on all aspects of whether it's water polo or gymnastics, all women's and men's teams is amazing. And we never won NCAA when I was there, but we got close second. But it was a lot of fun to be able to be on a Team USA. And like you said, sometimes you're going to see them in the training room, or you're going to see them in tutoring, or you're going to see them all over the place. And, those are the friendships that you keep for your rest of your life.
Meb, for you mentioned it earlier about, in your first Olympics, you had a chance, and obviously, but before that, leading up to that, talk about just maybe the training, your mindset, I know you're excited for the opportunity, but you still got to get there. They don't just appoint you to be an Olympian. You've got to earn that right. Talk a little bit about going into that very first one, everything that you had to do to lead into that and how that got you there.
Most definitely, Coach. For me, on July 2nd, 1998, I got my U.S. citizenship, which was a blessing. It was in Cabrillo National Monument in San Diego, overlooking the ocean. I said, this is the American dream. But there is no guarantee going to the Olympics. Yes, you got your paper, but it's through hard work and perseverance, ups and downs of life, and train about 100 to 130 miles a week to get to that level. And that's not the hardest part. The hardest part is staying healthy. As Coach John wouldn't say, it's not what you do in 2 hours in practice, but how you take care of yourself the next 22 hours are essential and very important. So to be able to do that and keep going is important. And going to the Olympics, I ask people, which one is more pressure? The Olympic trials or the Olympics? And I really think the Olympic trials is more pressure, because you got, once you make that top 3 or you get selected in the team in a basketball, you're already going to be an Olympian known, but it's not handed to you. You have to earn those, especially in track and field. You can set the world record or have a phenomenal week a week later. It doesn't matter if you don't do top 3, including myself. When I was an Olympic silver medalist, maybe I'm just jumping the gun a little bit, but I didn't go to Beijing, even though I was second in New York, third in Boston Marathon, and second at the Olympic Games. I didn't earn my spot top 3. So the pressure is real, and I think it's a lot more pressure to qualify for the Olympics, as dominant as the United States is in all those events. And then once you go to the Olympics, it's a blessing. Obviously, you want a medal and you want to see your flag, United States flag, or your country on the banners and the stands, but at the same time, only 3 people are going to get, and you're trying to get the best out of yourself when you go to the Olympics.
Meb, you made up a great point. I'd love to hear your perspective on this, but, the pressure in the trials to make the team. So just to give everybody a perspective, really, like you said, it really doesn't matter what you did a month or 2 before or later. Sometimes in basketball, we just select, okay, we're just going to select these 12 guys, and they're going to be Olympians. So, but people in life, Meb, we all deal with these pressure-packed moments, they're in periods of our life where, I use this term all the time, and I'm writing a book right now called Get It Done, a playbook for leadership. But there are these get it done moments, and you've got to get it done like then, now. And talk about how you personally, you didn't really deal with the pressure, but it's there. But just talk about your mindset of how you overcome that, and how did you settle into where you then can become the best that you possibly can be during that period when it's this is true now, it's a true get it done time in your life.
Coach, I can't wait to read your book, and what a great title, Get It Done. Sounds simple, but so much goes into it in terms of pressure. I believe the key to success is preparation. If you don't prepare as a coach, they can get us to the starting line, and then one coach, Joe Vigil, said, it's 9 inches above the shoulder. Once you get the gun goes off, for me, it is on to you. Coach got you there to the best he can, and now how do you execute and get it done in the moment? Well, sometimes it's a 5K, it might last 13 minutes and change, or 10K, 27 minutes and change. But a marathon, a lot can go wrong, but you have to be able to assess your body and analyze your competitors or what they are capable of doing, what their strength is, but also make a good judgment of what is happening right now. I competed against the best of the best in the world, world record holder, 4-time Boston Marathon champion, second fastest time ever in the world, but I did not have the times to be competitive with them. But you have to get it done on that moment, that day. What you did a month ago, what you did in 2 months, it doesn't matter. Once the gun, we know now, as we prepare for the New York City Marathon, one I'm going to go next week, that moment has been on the schedule for a year. How do you peak for that time and not get sick and not overtrain and control what you can control? And the weather you can't control, so you have to be adaptable to that. It's not like an arena where you can go to AC and compete. Here is so many. It's going to be hot, it's going to be hilly, it's going to be windy, or it could be cold. It could be snowing. So how do you prepare for those mentally beforehand is important. And once the gun goes off, each is for its own. And now it's 26.2 miles. It'll take about 2 hours and 8 minutes or 2 hours and 5 minutes. But how do you even break those? You can't say, I got 26.2 miles. I got to make it to, is my shoes double tied? Is the pace okay for the first 5K? Is it, what am I going to do the 10 miles? What am I going to do at the halfway? Did I go too fast? Did I go too slow? How are they? And then you assess the defending champions are there. Do they look overweight or do they look fit enough? They can be competitors. And as Coach Bob Larson would say, on race day, some of them are going to psych themselves out, whether it's Olympic Games or New York Marathon or Boston Marathon. Some of them are going to deal with injuries. Are you going to be the 1/3 to be ready that day and come and get it done to the point of, hey, I am ready to execute good plan? And then if you do, use your mind tactics to be able to just come to the victorious or get to that finish line as first as possible.
You know, Meb, when I talk and I do a lot of speeches around the country, and I talk about the get it done approach, and I talk about, then I break the GID, which is get it done, but I break it into grit, integrity, and desire. But when I think of you, and I think of a marathon runner like you who's had success, who's won on the biggest stages there is, grit, you know, like it has to be so much a part of like just who you are, you know, like the bigger the moment, the tougher the time, the more challenging it is, I've got to find a way to rise up. You have to do that and have that mental toughness. Define for me how you see grit and how it applied into you as a runner.
Of course, there have been so many obstacles, so many challenges in 26.2 mile. All of them, I felt like dropping out at one point or another. You know, it's hard. But a perfect example would be, there's many of them, but the 2012 Olympic Games in London, I was at halfway mark and I wanted to drop out. I already signed up for New York City Marathon, which is like 2.5 months or so. So while I beating my body up to get 50th. I'm at 21st place right now, and I didn't even think I was going to pass people. I'm just going to drop out. And then I looked down on my jersey and realized I'm wearing the USA jersey. And how many people would love to be in my shoes right now representing the United States? So no, don't make excuses. No matter how many people pass you, get to that finish line. No, I'm 21st. I'm thinking maybe 20, 30 people are going to come pass me. I'm going to finish the race. But positive thinking is important. Be in the moment and say, now, I remember Coach Bob Larson was in the field and said, hey, come catch the second group. So I got up to the second group. There was 8 of us. And then you make a new goal. I want to be one of those 8 people. Gets you going. Then you kind of analyzing how they're doing and say, maybe I could be 2 or 3. Maybe I could be the champion of this group. Then you realize with 5K to go, he pointed out 6 fingers. So from 21st place, I'm in 6th place. I'm running next to the Japanese guy. I said, I can sit, I'll kick him and get 5th place. But then I realized to say, who's in the front? I didn't even know who's in the front. If any of those guys get busted with drug testing, I want to be able to move from 4th place to the bronze medal. So I just talked to myself, and there was one guy from the United States that says, come on, Meb, you can get the next guy. I acknowledged him, and I'm trying. And then with about 500 meters to go, I passed the 4th place, getting in 4th place. So that's the grit. And it just says, you know what, sometimes you're going to throw in the towel in, but you have to be in the moment and realize how many people that are with us or no longer with us that you are able to do the things you do. So you have to honor them, not just for yourself, but for the family that are in the hospital that they can't do. You know somebody, at least somebody struggling, or you know somebody that is no longer with us. Just pray and say, give me your power, give me your strength. So you have to be in the moment to be able to just, be active on it. And then you have to persist, have grit, and be able to just rise to the occasion. Sometimes you're not going to win. I didn't get my goals like I was going to get top 10 or top 3, but that door by finishing 4th place was the reason why I was invited back to the Boston Marathon the following year. So it's just because you didn't get the medals or the stand that you think you deserve, don't give up hope. Keep persisting, and then many other doors will open. So for me, that London 2012 Olympic Games was the reason why it opened doors for me for Boston to be able to win it 2 years later.
Meb, I remember John Wooden said to us one time when I was coaching at UCLA, he said he talked to us, and He said, the mental is to the physical is 4:1. And when I first heard that, I was thinking, okay, yeah, I get it. But then as I've gone through life, I see how true that is. The mental is to the physical is 4 times more important. So in those moments for you, you're running, your body is hurting. You've ran through some injuries too, some real injuries, and you continued on and never quit. But all of us in life go through these moments, where doubt creeps in, frustration, but man, the mental to the physical, you certainly have to be physically ready. You can't win unless you're physically ready. That's a foundation. But talk a little bit more about that mental side of things for you to have the success you did.
Coach, I tell people 90% is physical, 10% is mental and training. So through the training, as long as you can go through the grind and be able to just show up consistently. But once on race day, it switches. It's 90% mental, 10% you're healthy and physically in shape and ready to go. And how do you execute those are very, very important and crucial, because we don't want to make mistakes. We want to learn from other people's mistakes. So you have to be patient. Marathon is not a sprint, it's a journey. And that journey is going to be 26.2 miles, and a lot of can go with it. You can get food poisoning the day before, or you can lose your luggage, or the weather's bad and it's windy and all those things. So you have to be able to do what you can control. But you're going to say, it's rainy or hot for everybody. It is difficult, hilly course for everybody. But you got to say, I visualize this. I do a lot of visualization beforehand. Said, okay, I'm getting ready for New York City Marathon. I'm getting ready for the Boston Marathon. And if you do rehearse those things month out, not the week before, you will be all right. And then on race day, I told you about the Boston Marathon. The last thing I tell my coach, Bob Larson, was, don't not worry. You're not going to see me into the last 5K of the 26.2 miles. So you're going to see the last 3 miles of me. But something happened. I'm 5 miles. The Kenyans, the Ethiopians were trying to slow down. My goal was to win, top 3, or run a personal best. If I'm going to do that, it was the year after the bombing. I had the victim's name on my bib: Sean, Martin, Crystal, and Ling. There was so much writing on the wall. There was people holding posters. I just said, you know what? If I'm going to do that, let them earn it. I'm just going to go for it. At 5 miles into the race, I have 21 miles to go. It was crazy move, but it's not crazy afterward in hindsight now. Sometimes in the moment, say, I can't believe I'm going to do this. But if you believe in yourself, you believe in your training and take a risk, amazing thing can happen. And once from 99% of the time, a person that does that, they will get caught. But what they realized about me was I did the small details that will make big difference eventually. The drills, the massages, the ice bath, the 120 miles a week, and the cross training, all those things when nobody's watching. So on race day, you'd be like, you know what? Self-confidence is important. Just say, I won New York before. I won a silver medal before. I was 4th in the Olympics before. You gonna let me go? Fine. I'm gonna make you pay for it. And as the race unfolds, I'm like, I can't believe they let me go. And that the athlete, you hear sometimes the mind of a body, you're so much in the zone. I don't remember to this day going to the halfway point because I was so into it. And I looked at my watch. It was already past the halfway point. I'm like, I made a mistake. Did I go too fast? Because I was trying to assess where I was and I couldn't. So I'm like, you know what? Boston is all about the title anyways. It doesn't matter what time you run. You can run it in 2 hours and a half or 2 hours and 10 minutes or 50 minutes. You're going to be the Boston Marathon champion. Just keep going. And no American has won this in 31 years. So people are getting excited they're doing the waves like you do in the stadium. They're chanting USA, USA. I start joining them. I'm like, USA, USA. But then I realized you can do that afterward. Focus on the race, It's a point-to-point course, so I can't look back, see who's behind me. I had a big lead, but eventually got narrower, and I feel like throwing up. The mind part, I feel like throwing up mile 24, but I couldn't throw it up. I just hold my chin up because the guy is right next 5 seconds behind me, maybe 6 seconds. So I just say, you know what? Just keep it together. Don't throw up to the side. Keep pushing and pushing. And I'm hurting really badly. I'm having a big wound under my left foot. that have been constant on my problem. So I just kept pushing and pushing. And with 1 mile to go, it was 6 seconds separation from a minute and 15 seconds before to, not that I'm getting this information, this is later on, but 6 seconds. And I said, well, he must be hurting, otherwise he would be next to me. So the mental aspect has to come. So he must be hurting just as I am. So I am willing to hurt a little bit more. And then there was finally a turn. I just met, it's called Harvard Street. Boston, where the finish line is of the Boston Marathon. I made a right blind spot. I said, sprint as hard as you can. Your finish line is not the finish line. This is the blind spot, is the finish line. Make the gap look bigger. So hopefully he give up. And that's what he did. And then making a left on Boston where the bombing happened, I crushed myself as a believer. I said, wow, there were 36,000 people who wanted something positive, and I had the great honor and privilege to lead the 36,000 and chanting USA, USA, where the catastrophic bombing was. And what a great honor it was to represent the United States and be the first American to win in 31 years.
Meb, for you in the Boston, and you won the New York as well, but that Boston, a year after the bombings, which was a horrific act and a horrific time, and then here you guys come a year later, and there had to be maybe just a little something extra on it as well, too, because of what happened a year before. Every race is important. Every race is magnificent, the things you accomplish. But coming on the heels of that act, the act in Boston at the marathon, and then for you to be the winner, to win the Boston Marathon the year after the bombings, talk about the emotion of that for you.
It was deep. I mean, I was at the bombing. I missed the bombing by 5 minutes. I was there for 4+ hours just watching my fellow runners, and I got injured, so I couldn't run the race, but I wanted to see them. And I was taking notes, in fact, of what the spirit of the marathon is, how everybody help each other get the finish line or encourage each other. So I left 5 minutes prior to the bombing, and I remember Bonnie Ford from ESPN asked me, are you scared to come back, or are you going to bring your family? What's your mental status right now? And I remember telling her that day on April 15, 2013, I hope to be healthy enough to win it for the people. I said I'll go for myself. And for 365 days, Boston Strong was the mantra. They want to show resilience. They want to show grit and perseverance. And I said, for 365 days, I visualized that race. Not that we wanted the bombing to happen, but since it happened, I said, you know what? I got to do it in fact, the day of the bombing, I remember sending a text to my good friend Ryan Ho, fellow marathoner, and who was my teammate at the Olympics, my training partner at times. I said, we can do this. I believed in it before the bombing. And that evening after the bombing, I said, you know what, tell Bonnie Ford, I have to be healthy enough for the people. So there were a couple things that were reassuring. And then when the Red Sox won and put the baseball team won it and put it on the finish line, I remember where I was that day. I was getting a massage at the very time that ESPN was showing it. I tell my massage guy, Gary Ackerman, I said, I want to do that for the runners on Patriots Day on Monday. And so you have constant dialogue going on. And when it all came together for me on April 21st to 2014, the year after the bombing, I mean, it was magical to just says all stars aligned. I was the 15th fastest guy in the field, so the chances were not good. According to expert, I was less than 1% chance to win. And I was 2 weeks shy of my 39th birthday. So, I mean, the likelihood it was not, but my heart was in the right place. And what a joy it was to be able to just come to the finish line. And it's a blessing. It really is. And I know we talked earlier about my 7th grade PE class. My running changed everything. But I know I got reassured that day on April 21st, 2014, that I wanted to be in the sport to impact and inspire people. And the following day, when President Barack Obama called me, I knew how big a deal that was. Job well done, way to represent the United States. For a little boy born in Eritrea, without electricity, no running water, didn't see television until I was 10 years old, and to come to the United States and be a citizen, and then the President of the United States calling you to say, job well done. Unreal.
Meb, talk about through all of that, you've got these 3 letters across your chest. And you just talked about your phone call from President Barack Obama. But for a young person who grew up where you grew up, and the things that you watched, the things that you experienced, the things that your family experienced, and your friends and friends' parents, and now you're in the Olympics at times with USA. Tell me how that felt for you.
I mean, to wear the USA singlet is always a blessing and a big honor. And with that comes big responsibility. And for me to see where my life started and to get the opportunity to represent the United States and wearing that USA jersey, whether it is at the Olympics or at the Boston Marathon or New York City Marathon, I take a lot of pride, and you visualize as an athlete, you have those, when I wore my first singlet competition, San Diego High, and it's wow, I made the cross country team. It's wow, how amazing, but then eventually, to be able to wear that USA jersey, that's very few people do that. Only 3 people every 4 years in your events get picked. And to wear that at the Olympic Games, and it really is a pinch me moment. Like I keep saying that word, but it's unreal. And for me, always I hope and I do pray that I represent the United States at the best that I can, because once I've made a promise to become a U.S. citizen, I want to represent to the best that I can. U.S. distance run was not in a good place at the time, and I wanted to help with the resurgence of U.S. distance run, and not only in the. And I wrote letters to Nike, wrote to Reebok and other things. I had this vision that I wanted to do, and not everybody took it serious, but I meant it, because for me, I'm a student of the sport. Now, people know me as a marathoner, but I was a miler and then 5K, 10K, and I want to help U.S. resurgence with that as best as I can. And, sometimes I have received well and others has been a challenge, but, running is it's a lonely sport. But you don't make a huge amount of money either, but you do it for the passion and you do it for the love. You can run 10 weeks in a row, 100 miles a week, and a race doesn't go, especially marathon, you only do twice a year. It's not like baseball or football or basketball, you play twice a week or every other weekend. But run marathon is very, very challenging. So you have to peak at the right time. And it is always a great honor to wear the USA jersey anytime that I can.
Meb, you shared a story with my team at NC State one time, and I really want you to kind of dive into this a little bit, but I hope I get this right, but I'm going to set it up, but I want you to really explain it deeper where, and a lot of people don't realize in your sport a lot of times, your livelihood and what you're living on sometimes is your endorsement money. And those opportunities and a lot of the athletes like yourself do that because you're not getting a big salary like some of these pro athletes in basketball and football and other sports, but you got to an age where I think it was Nike at the time said, I don't know how they said it. I want to hear your version, but basically you're kind of getting up there in age and maybe it's time to move on, and you lost that. And this was before you won in Boston in the marathon. Talk a little bit about that period, and did doubt kind of creep in? How did you get your next endorsement? I know the story, but I want you to tell the story, because I think it talks a little bit more about your belief in yourself, your perseverance, and your desire to continue to run. So that period when that kind of fell apart, and what happened?
Yeah, most races, you as a runner, you are good at your last race. If you had a 6 month ago great race, you're gonna be hopefully, on the driver's side. But unfortunately for me, I won the New York City Marathon. Fortunately for me, I won the New York City Marathon in 2009, and Nike did say they have money for me until 2010, and 2010 is when my contract was up, and unfortunately I finished 6th, even though I trained my butt off, put 100 to 130 miles a week. That race didn't go because maybe the pressure of defending the title, there was a reason why no American won it in 27 years, and here I am trying to do back-to-back, and it showed how difficult it was. So Nike decided I was on the edge, and they wanted to invest in somebody else, but I really believed in myself, and it was less than 50 cents to what I earned through my bonuses. The offer was on the table, and they expect me to finish a lot more higher. And I said, wait a minute, let's figure this out. I love to be a Nike. I love to be an ambassador for you, even beyond my running. But they took the contract off the table, and I said, you know what? So I went 7 months without a shoe, without any pay, as an endorser from a shoe company from January till August. And then fortunately for me, Skechers stepped up big time at that time. And even Skechers were new to the sport. They even made 1 year contract versus 2, 3, 4 years contract. It was a year-to-year deal. But I ran a PR first time I wore Skechers, and then the rest is history. And then I was with them for 12 years now. Even as an ambassador, I'm with New Balance to be able to just it's not beyond the finish line. Many people saw me, and I wanted it to myself too, to be an ambassador for sports. I want to be able to encourage people to exercise. Back in the days was an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I think exercise keeps the doctor away nowadays. So I want to be able to do that. And New Balance has been a great ambassador for me to be able to step up to this plate. But yeah, I think you are as good as your last race. And sometimes those races, Sean Elliott, the great basketball player, said, he said that when I tell him who I was and how many marathons do you do? And he goes, I do two a year. He goes, we got 82 games to get it right. You got two to get it right. That's tough. That's a lot of pressure. So those things are the moment that, more non-marathoners, whether it's basketball, even football players and boxers, have the understanding now for marathoners. It's not like you could do next week or 2 months later. Rarely do you get to do that. You only pick twice a year. And as long as you do that, it's tough and challenge, but at the same time, you got to believe in yourself. Know that what's intrinsically in you. I remember when I didn't make the Beijing Olympics, I contemplated retirement, 2007, November, that is. And I tell my brothers and sisters that I need you more than ever because I'm going to make that segue as an athlete to the next chapter of my life. But my brothers, my wives, and my family believed in me, and I believe in myself as well. I know there was something inside of me. I said, if the end is the silver medal, the end is the 10K record American record that I have. If that's okay, I'm okay with it. But I knew internally there was more than what showed in the race when I ran with a pelvis stretch fracture at the November of 2007 Olympic trials in New York. And I wanted that one so bad. I overdid myself. I worked extremely too hard. And then, nutrition is important. So I wasn't taking enough calories to keep up with what I was demanding out of my body. And unfortunately, I didn't make the Olympic team, but I made a goal for myself. I can't wait another 4 years. My wife and I prayed in New York and said, you know what? I'm going to come back. New York City Marathon is going to be my Olympic, not Beijing. So it took me a year and a half to make that dream come true, but eventually happened. So dreams do come true, maybe not as early or as when we want them, but they do eventually happen.
Meb, talk to me a little bit about, because I think everybody that's going to watch or listen to this podcast, they're gonna see clearly, like that you could see and feel your passion, not just for yourself, but for others as well. And you do have an individual sport that you ran, but there's a big team behind you. You have a lot of support behind you, but you've also created a foundation that I think is unbelievably special. Talk a little bit about why and what it is and what you hope to accomplish and what you're doing and why that means so much to you.
I was born in Africa, and it takes a village to raise a child. And I definitely see that in Eritrea. People, if somebody does right, they compliment them. If they see somebody does wrong, they correct them. So it takes a village to raise a child. It means that you have to be able to be in the same environment to say, hey, I want to help you when you do good or when you do bad. It doesn't have to be a parent to correct that person, because that's somehow, some way, eventually is going to be a contributor to society, good or bad. So with the MEB Foundation is maintain excellent balance through health, education, and fitness to help youth to be able to help them get the best out of themselves. Education is important, health and fitness. Sometimes obesity, is part of the problem. Or people are on electronic doing this all the time, but going outdoor, running half a mile or 400 meters is so much that tells you about who you are, character, and then time management and perseverance. Because if you do those small things, they're going to add up to be a better students and then hopefully better contributor to society. So that's the goal of MEB Foundation, to be able, we do fundraising through the New York City Marathon, Boston Marathon, and Chicago Marathon. And we have bibs that we allocate for the foundation, and people do fundraising for that. And then we also have mebfoundation.org to be able for people to help our causes. But it's important because for me, sport means so much. And when I was in 7th grade, and like I said earlier, I was shy and timid. I didn't have much friends. But through sports, self-esteem goes up, work ethic goes up, and then also helps you translate to academics and workforce. So with the intention with the MEB Foundation is to do that. Sometimes, when parents take their kids to different sports, the parents are walking or they're running, and that's the benefit that we're trying to see. Now, but it all starts at home, eating right, the manners have to be right. And then eventually, if that goes it would translate to school. And then once it's translated to school, it's going to contribute to society.
Meb, talk a little bit for me too as we kind of get close to wrapping up here. I think for a lot of us, and I talk a lot, we've already mentioned, kind of that whole get it done mindset, and you've done it with your foundation. You're instilling that into young people. But how important for you, here's how I want to ask this question. When you're a marathon runner, the whole race matters and how your pace the whole time. But that last mile, that last 2 miles, you're closing in on the finish line. And what happens to all of us every day in life is, I don't care who it is, and being able to be at your best as we finish, to finish strong. And you did it as a runner. You had to do it to be a winner and to be where you were. Talk about that and how important it is to be a great finisher.
The pressure in the last mile is immense, but the key to success is, like I said earlier, is preparation. When you prepare, and what that means, prepare for yourself, but also prepare to do your homework. Who the other competitors are, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and also what have they done lately. You have to understand, do analytical on who those people are. And I've never been the guy that finished with a kicker, so I got to get rid of all my competitors within a mile or 2 miles to go, because I don't want to come to the 100-meter and a sprint, because that's not. I don't want to take that risk. So for me is to outsmart my competitors as much as I can. But in the last mile going into like New York, I was ready to celebrate wearing that USA jersey. The four-time Boston Marathon is there, and the silver medalist from the Beijing Olympic, which I don't go to, is there. So you visualize those moments, and when you're wearing that USA jersey, the crowd is supporting you. So I feedback a lot from the crowd. I mean, I'm literally sometimes inches away from them, but I also want to make sure nothing obstacle happens. I try to be in the center, but the energy of the crowd, that's why I love so much. Where I track, you're a little bit distance away, but cross country and road races, you are right there. You can hear, they can drop their shoulder or chin up, or they become your coach in a way, or you got 3 second gap. So it's exhilarating to run the last mile. The endorphin of running is real. The endorphin of winning is epic. I mean, to chant USA coming and know that you're going to win. Or if you can't win, I always say run to win. Doesn't mean get in first place, but get the best out of yourself. If you can't catch that person that is in first place or second place, you're finishing third, you want to be the best third finisher that you can be, because they might be better than you did today, but the competitor, you said, you know what, I'm happy to be here. I want to be able to get it done as best I can, third place. But next time when the gun goes off, you can try to execute another good plan or good strategy to beat them next time.
Meb, this has been amazing. And I've told you before, man, how much I admire everything that you've done throughout your career. But more than that, you've stood on the top box. You're a champion. You've wore the USA jersey, the Bruin jersey. You've represented your country. But I tell people all the time, and even when you spoke to our teams at NC State, I remember you coming to Boston College. You were in Boston, and we played a road game up there in Boston, and you came in after the game, and we had just had a nice win, and you were able to talk to our guys. But it's your character. It's who you are. It's what you represent as far as how we all should try to live our lives. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming on today, and I'm a big fan of yours.
Thanks, Coach. I can't believe it went by so fast. Thanks for the great questions and the great team that you had over the years. And for me, it's an honor and privilege to know you and be able to share some of the lessons that I learned to your players. And I still think about that, those 6 foot, some guys, there's a little guy. And but at the end of the day, we all want to be champions. We want to get the best out of ourselves. It's not getting first place, but getting the best out of ourselves. And it's a treat to be on this podcast with you.
Thank you, Meb. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Meb, that was great. Hang on for a few seconds. Make sure we